Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to episode 117 of Sports Management Podcast. This podcast is and will forever be completely free, but if I can ask you for one favor, it's this. If you have ever learned something from this podcast, please share it with a friend. That's the fastest way to grow the podcast, and the bigger the show, the bigger the guests. Thank you. Now, today's guest is Anneliese Mesilati, the head of brand activation and sponsorships at UBS. The global sponsorship portfolio at UBS is rooted in culture and sports, including motorsports with the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team and the New York Islanders NHL team, from whom they have the arena naming rights. Get ready to learn about UBS's sponsorship strategy, how they could partner with F1 with sustainability in mind, how UBS support the sport of ice hockey, why New York is a key market for UBS, and much more. Anneliese Mesilati, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to talk to you today. We'll talk a lot about sponsorships. So what is so exciting about sponsorships for you?
Many things, really. I think the first thing is that you get to engage in areas where people are just super passionate. And so I work within financial services, which isn't really the coolest of sectors to work in. But within that, getting to work on kind of all of the cool stuff. I work with sports teams and in arts and culture, and get to really be at events and in places and spaces where we're alongside our clients, just really exploring the kind of things that they're passionate about and getting to work with people who are the absolute best in their fields. It's a real privilege.
I can understand that. And you alluded to it there that you work with some sports as well. And that's, of course, the main topic here on this podcast. So you work with New York Islanders, you work with the Mercedes Formula One team. So your company is UBS. So can you talk a little bit about the company and then what work you do in the sports sector?
Yeah. So UBS, we are a broad-ranging financial services company. We're a wealth manager, we have an investment bank, and we're an asset manager. And in Europe, we have retail banking. We're actually the world's largest wealth manager, and we have a really huge global footprint. So we say we're truly the world's kind of largest wealth manager. So we have significant operations across the globe. And as a result of that, we have looked at partnering with organizations and institutions that have global reach. So that would be, for example, with Formula One. We have a partnership with the Mercedes Formula One team, which interestingly enough, when I first joined UBS 6 years ago, I'm personally a big Formula One fan, was not a big thing in the US. So people would often say, well, I mean, it's great that we're partners with Mercedes, but what does that do for us here? It's a kind of very niche in the US, and a lot of our clients aren't really interested in the sport. And since Drive to Survive, and in the last few years, we've seen that just absolutely skyrocket in terms of popularity in the US and become really a truly global sport.
You have said that you work with like organizations and teams and not so much individuals. What is the strategy behind that?
Well, I just think in terms of a firm strategy, when we look at that, there is greater reputational risk. There's just greater risk around aligning with an individual over a team. It's something that we've seen in the industry kind of over many years, and it doesn't mean that certain individuals might have deliberately kind of taken a certain path or gone down a certain path, but humans are, we're human. We have very many life experiences, And from our perspective, aligning with an individual can come with its risks. So that's where we don't tend to do that. And then also, again, when we look at our sponsorships, they're very holistic in terms of how we will partner, and we tend to achieve all of the touch points that we're looking at through partnership with a team as opposed to partnering with an individual. I feel that partnering with an individual, that can be quite narrow in terms of the way that we are able to activate our sponsorships, and we have much more scope if we're partnering with a team or an organization.
So one of the partnerships that you have is with the New York Islanders, the NHL team, and you have also the naming rights for the arena, UBS Arena. Can you talk a little bit about that decision to put the naming rights and also what you feel that you get back from that investment?
Yeah, so New York it's the global home for ultra high net worth, and being a wealth manager, high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals are a big target for us. So it was important for UBS to really establish our brand strategy in the US around the New York market. And going forward, we're looking to expand that further outside of New York, but to just really get a foothold in the US, we felt that New York was the best place to start. And it was interesting. I mean, the arena was being built. It was a new ground up development, which is very rare in New York. It's very rare to be able to find the real estate to be able to build a new venue at the scale of UBS Arena. The New York Islanders as a team needed a home. So they were actually a very, very long established multi-Stanley Cup winning team with, that was a dynasty, back in the day in the 70s and 80s, that were really looking for a return to their glory days and looking for a venue. And the developers, Oakview Group, were looking, for an anchor tenant. They found the New York Islanders, and to have this new venue in New York, where you've got a huge amount of the population of people that live in New York, Connecticut, Long Island, Manhattan, Queens, all of that area, where, they're traveling to the city, they're traveling out to New Jersey. There was a real need to have a new venue. So it was important for us to work on a project that would fit with that client audience, and also just incredible that we were able to partner with the Islanders and present them with a new home, which is a story that quite often you don't get in sports sponsorship. You're taking over the name of a legacy venue, and sometimes that doesn't get very well received by an existing fan base. So we had the opportunity where we were giving the Islanders a home in Long Island, right up next to their fan base, and a incredible new state-of-the-art home that was actually built for hockey. So that was a key part.
So would it have been different if it was an already existing arena, you think? Was this a unique opportunity that it was something that was built new?
I think for us, the way that we looked at it, the fact that the venue was new, state-of-the-art, and also we did this deal over the pandemic. So the arena actually continued in construction throughout the pandemic, 2020 to 2021. And when we saw the way that the arena has got, things that no one thought that you'd necessarily need, like best-in-class air filtration and those things, we always knew. I mean, UBS, as a financial services, as a wealth manager, we always look at the long term. So we always knew that there would be a return to mass participation. We always knew that the entertainment industry, the sporting industry was going to come back. But to know that we could come back with a partner that had incorporated all of this, amazing technology, touchless technology into the venue was really important for us. Also, another key criteria is sustainability. So sustainable impact investing and sustainability are really core parts of UBS purpose. And the Oakview Group, who are the developers, actually worked with the state to put the first new Long Island Railroad train station in the arena, and that's the first new station for 40 years. So that was another huge benefit for us, that we could partner with a project that's got mass transit and sustainability in mind when they're constructing a venue.
I understand. And also after UBS undertook the naming rights for the arena, you have paid some more close attention to ice hockey, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone can tell, but I'm not a US native. I'm from the UK, so I absolutely no background in ice hockey whatsoever. I played field hockey, but there's very, very little ice hockey in the UK. So it was a very, very steep learning curve. Obviously, was very aware of the Rangers and the kind of the big teams. So it was a quick and fast education in ice hockey for me. And there is, we've got a huge amount of clients that are Islanders fans. We've got clients, and in fact, it's great because across the league, we've got clients that are based down in Florida, based, in down in North Carolina, or lots of different areas. And when the Islanders go and play, we get to connect with clients all across the US. Yeah, so I think it was an education, but one of the things that was the biggest education was that there was a perception, well, particularly diversity and inclusion is very important for UBS. In the US, we were one of the first financial institutions to publish publicly our D&I targets and figures and work through those. And the original feedback we got from some people was, why ice hockey? It's not diverse. It's really a lot of kind of, why is UBS involved there? So we looked at that, and in the US, it's the most expensive youth participation sport. And as a result of that, it hasn't got very much traction in underserved communities. It's not diverse. Not very many women play. So how can we look as UBS, if we're going to, partner so prominently within ice hockey? We, through the NHL's New York Islanders, and actually subsequently we are a partner with the Firebirds, which is an AHL team in Palm Springs. How do we work to kind of move the needle on diversity and inclusion within the sport? And then that's where we partnered with 43 Oak Foundation. And I can talk more to that as well if you're interested, but that's a incredible, what was grassroots organization, but now growing, that really looks at addressing those issues.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I work in ice hockey as well, and growing the game and bringing more from, as you said, from underserved communities, and also everyone in ice hockey are aware that it's an expensive sport. So it's a great initiative. So I would be happy to, if you wanted to speak a little bit more to the 43 Oak Foundation and what work you do with them.
Yeah, so we started our relationship. We literally just went out and started to look at what organizations were out there and who we might partner with. And in this beginning phase of our work and, a partnership in hockey, we found 43 Oak Foundation, which is led by Sean Greby, who, if anyone comes within, a few hundred meters of him, you're going to get sucked in and be part of his journey. He's just so compelling, and he's just so committed to the kids that he works with. So their remit is to really look at kids starting at around 14, 15 years old, going up to college, that have a interest and a passion and a competence in ice hockey, and how he can work to support them so that they don't fall out of the sport. And when we first met them, it was so clear that the barriers, they're not skills related, they're not talent, they're not commitment related, they're financial. So how do we get them out in the right equipment? How do we support ice time, transportation, fees to tournaments, all of these things that are really, really barriers to these young athletes? And we worked with the New York Islanders. This is a 5-year partnership that we have with the New York Islanders, where we financially support 43 Oak foundation to the tune of $1 million to help those players progress in their sporting careers. And we're actually seeing it come through. We're seeing kids get to college. We're seeing, kids excel in the leagues that they're playing with. The member base of 43 Oak has gone up. I think it's 4 times now. So it's incredible. We're starting to involve girls wherever we can, where that publicity grows around the organisation. More girls are showing their interest. In addition to the financial support, we've looked at where can we help as organisations. So that would be UBS and the Islanders. And from a UBS perspective, we work with the players on interview skills, career readiness. We have a mentorship program where we run financial literacy programs for the families. It's the players and their families. We actually just did a session around college financing. So where can we support in any way? And with the Islanders, they've had people from the organisation come. We just did a session on health and wellness. Obviously, it's good nutrition, training programs, sleep, all of that. Getting that from a professional sports team and giving that, incredible knowledge to the players. So I think we've got a really, really exciting partnership.
That's a great initiative. Really important, as we said, for the things that the ice hockey really need.
Yeah. And then I think I really hope to be sitting here in, maybe at this point, it might even be 5 years' time, and we'll get some of these players come through into the league. So that would be incredible.
So another partnership that you have with UBS is with the Mercedes Formula One team. It's a partnership you want to have for a long time with longevity in mind. So can you talk a little bit about that partnership?
Yeah, so UBS has been involved with Formula One for well over a decade. We're actually involved with the organisation. And then when Mercedes returned to Formula One, I think it was around 10 years ago, UBS partnered with the then new team in its first season, and we've been partners with them ever since. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton was part of that team, is part of that team, and that's been absolutely, tremendous for us to be partner with a team where we can sit alongside the greatest F1 driver of all time. And then also just the way that we have seen the sport grow, the way that we've seen the sport grow internationally. It's so important for our clients. We've got clients attending in Mexico at the end of the month. We'll have, in the US, we've seen the new races. So obviously Austin, last year, the race in Austin actually had the largest gate that it's ever had, the most attendees that it's ever had. And then we've sat alongside Mercedes to activate at Miami, and we're preparing for Vegas in November, which is going to be really quite something. So I think with Formula One, the great points for the partnership are that we can offer incredible access to our clients, this real absolute money can't buy access to the team, but also we get to partner with the team more broadly because our values are similar. I mean, the way that UBS, we have for example, an organization called Evidence Lab, where we use AI and geospatial engineering and all this technology to look at the world of research. And then obviously the Formula One teams are extremely technical in the way that they approach the sport. So there are a lot of synergies and parallels in the way that we can partner with Mercedes and help communicate what they're doing, out to our staff, out to our clients. Also with Lewis, we have worked over the past few years with him and looking where we can support Mission 44 and also help, support his platform through any means, where we look at the way that he is looking to make the sport more diverse, to look at the diversity inclusion, to include children from, underserved communities through STEM at an earlier age. So we've sat down with him. We've done a number of content pieces with him that have orientated around pushing forward that diversity and inclusion within Formula One. So he's an incredible partner for us. And then again, with like young talent, with the other drivers, looking at that, those attributes, the drive, the ambition, the commitment, the technical approach, they're all great values that very much align with us and our clients.
How does it work with regards to sustainability? Because I know that Lewis himself is really, on that ball, but then maybe Formula One as a sport might not be the most sustainable sport. So how is that partnership with regards to sustainability?
Well, so that was a big question for us. And actually, at one point, it looked like we weren't going to be able to continue to work within Formula One because of the issues around sustainability. And the sport really, really has taken pretty dramatic moves over the last, I would say, 2 years to look at its sustainability. So that would be from the net zero targets that they've got, these aggressive targets, also looking at how they actually operate as a sport, because they're this, huge traveling circus that moves all these teams all around the globe, so that we're aware that they will now have kind of global like regional hubs, so that they aren't having to fly and move everything around the world so much. So they're really looking at how they're trying to combine races regionally wherever they can. So they're really looking at their footprint and, obviously the technology that sits within that's way, way beyond, levels of my understanding in terms of fuel technology and the engineering. And also we're aware of, like, Mercedes, that technology gets filtered down to road cars. So the Formula One team and their technology will actually, go to the forecourt to a car that's going to be bought by the general public, and they're the kind of genesis of that those ideas and that tech. So I feel now we're in a place where we're continuing to push, and as a partner, I feel that we can continue to push. But they're very regular conversations that UBS will have with the sport, and we're constantly pushing on that side.
Yeah, of course, and it's an important issue, and it's also good, as we said, Lewis is having, he's pushing that a lot, and he has his own Mission 44, which I believe that you are involved with as well.
Yeah, so we work with, we have had some organisational support for Mission 44, and then also, for example, we have an athlete and entertainer client segment where we offer advice specifically to athletes and entertainers, because they have a kind of very different profile to other individuals. And we've recently sat down with that segment and Lewis and spoken about his career, and he's talked in depth around Mission 44 and his efforts around philanthropy and sustainability. And that's something that we're really seeing, is that a lot of athletes now, they have extensive lives beyond their sport. So they're entrepreneurs, they're philanthropists, they're activists. And that's an area where UBS over the last few years has been very involved. We've created TV shows with some athletes where we have looked at supporting all of that, where we can really get a kind of look behind the scenes at these athletes and see, how they're using the power of their platforms, and their resources to really, make significant impacts in the world. And I think that Lewis is absolutely stands out as a stellar example of that. But we've also worked with many other athletes. So, for example, Alison Felix, she's one of the greatest female athletes of all time, the greatest US Olympian, and she has a great commitment to education, to childhood education, and we've created content with there where we've matched her with entrepreneurs that are leaders in that space. We've worked with athletes on a show where entrepreneurs position, food and health-based industries or sustainable industries. We work with Michelle West, and she invested in a company that was developing sustainable single-use items like straws and utensils. So we really try to use that platform and partner with athletes where we can to give them the ability to just show the great work that they do.
So if I've understood it correctly, you don't come from, a sporting background as of your work. So how did you fall into the sports industry, so to speak?
Yeah, so my background is marketing and branding. And I think it's really through that brand lens, that's how I've fallen into to sports. Because when you look at it, so I'm looking at any platform where we can look at getting the high profile for the brands that I'm working with, and obviously sports are a great platform for that. Highly visible, you've got a lot of eyes on them, and then I'll look for the place where it makes the most sense to have a brand association. So that can be the bigger global, but also from a kind of a more tactical local. So, for example, in the US previously, we've sponsored The Game, which is a huge college football match that takes place between Harvard and Yale. So that's broadcast on national television. It's got an absolutely tremendous viewership. And then Harvard and Yale, they're very in alignment with our kind of client demographic. So we'll get a lot of eyes on UBS on site, and then we'll get a lot of eyes on UBS through the audience that's going to be watching on that live broadcast on television. And that's our client base. So I just think sports can be a great platform. And again, you've got quite often a platform that can be very values driven, purpose driven, and can align with the way that UBS positions itself.
You work, as we have talked about now, in Formula One and ice hockey. So there are obviously several, many other sports. So are there some sports with regards to brand activation that are better and worse?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would be very rich if I had $1 for every time someone brings up just those traditional sponsorships like golf, tennis, those areas which, they're the kind of traditional spaces where you would generally tend to see a financial services institution. And, we look at them, but I think we need to find somewhere that, again, that diversity and inclusion component is important. So within golf, how would we get a partnership that would be able to meet those goals? And then also, because golf and tennis, for example, I'm just using these two as examples, seem the obvious space, they are extremely overcrowded in terms of sponsors. So we want to get the right opportunity. So we would need to have something where we're very, very visible and it's the right opportunity for us. And I think that's where we're not going to do anything that's kind of not reaching our return on investment goals and really being kind of positioning UBS in the best way. So I think overcrowding can be a big issue for us. We need to have something where UBS plays a prominent role, and again we look at the sustainability angle, the DE&I angle. I mean, we'll see with golf, it's being very disruptive at the moment. So one thing that we do is we just really keep an eye on everything and look at different sports and see what's changing. And sports are evolving. So I mean, I'm definitely keeping an eye on soccer for the US.
Yeah, definitely. That sport, you said you're from the UK, I'm from Sweden. So we have known that sport is great for years. It's just now the Americans are finding that out.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting to see where that will go. So I understand that you're keeping a close eye on that.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think it's interesting because for years, the US has really had been orientated around very US-centric sports. So baseball, basketball, football, American football, they've been the core sports, and obviously ice hockey as well. And now we're starting to see the emergence of global sports, international sports. And I mean, I know that many people are hugely loyal to their team, to their to their local team. But for my mind, there's nothing like getting behind your national team in a global sport. So I think that maybe the World Cup coming to the US, I think is going to be super pivotal as well.
Of course. What would be your best advice for someone with career aspirations in sponsorships?
So what I'm hearing quite often is that a lot of people come into this field via the sports route. So they would have started working out at a team, or they would have started working out of an agency. So one of the talent agencies, and that seems to be a fairly traditional route. I've not taken that route. I've come in from a marketing route and a brand route, because I've seen the value in sport because of as I mentioned, the number of eyes that are on it and how it can work to elevate a brand, and you can get traction around the brand. So I don't know. I mean, I would say that my route was a fairly interesting route, was a good route. But I don't know. I just think that, there can be, careers are not linear. There can be very, very different ways into an industry. I would say one thing for me, just very personally, is not coming from a sports background. It gives me quite a lot of freedom. So I'm not a hockey person or a baseball person or a tennis person. I've got a lot of freedom to be extremely objective around the sport. And of course, I'm passionate about sport, and I've got the sports that I'll tend to kind of link to more than others, but that can kind of lead me to really have an objective view on what I'm looking at. So that can be helpful. And then also, again, like hopefully I'm more kind of clued into potential trends as well. And I think for me, I lean quite heavily on other partners. So I've built a team where we've got people that have got great background in sports within my team. I partner with agencies that are very, very closely aligned with sporting teams and sports partnerships and activations. So that, I can build on that skill, but still have, for me, I look at return on investment, and that's my value. That's where I add value to UBS, through knowing that I've done something that's going to drive the ROI and is completely neutral to what it is.
Yeah, I think that the sports industry is interesting that way, because you can, access it through different ways, and they're not one path. Like if you're a lawyer, you need a law degree. But in sports, just you say, you come from sponsorship, you can come from the marketing side, you can come from communication. So that's one of the things that I love about it.
Absolutely. I think there's that. And the other thing that I've found since, working in sports is just how the opportunities that you have within a career, that you can literally live and work anywhere. You can go and work for a football team in Germany. You could work for a basketball team in Florida. Like it's, once you've got that skill, it's extremely transferable. And I think it's a great career. You get to, if that's what you choose, you get to go, live and work in very many different places and get exposures to lots of different things. So I think it's super exciting. And also just be somewhere celebrating with thousands of people on the weekends. I mean, that's great.
For sure. A closing tradition on this podcast is who from your network do you think would be a good guest for this podcast?
I would say Dan Griffiths from Oakview Group would be great, because he has worked on the client side, and he's now on the management side. So he actually has done the naming right partnership for 2 arenas when he was at Target. So he actually had 2 arenas, and now he's on the other side and works for Oakview Group. And represents many venues, many sports teams. So I think he could be a great perspective because you'd really get to see both sides. You'd get to see what it's like to be a naming right partner and what it's like to be a venue operator and part of team management.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Thank you. Good tip. Anneliese, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for having me. It was great to chat today.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.